Hello, and welcome to the High Conflict Co-Parenting Podcast. In this podcast, we explore and dive into the stress-filled world of high conflict divorce and relationships. We offer solutions to calm your world down and allow for greater positive engagement with your children and the people around you. If you find value in this commercial and advertising-free podcast, please consider donating by pressing the donate button so we can continue our helpful work. Thank you.
Welcome back, everybody, to the High Conflict Co-Parenting Podcast with Brooke and Tony McAllister. This week is episode 154, What is Important? Prioritizing, Disengaging, and Moving Forward. This is going to tie in a little bit to last week's podcast regarding creating templates and what have you in terms of what to do. But this is going to be a little bit different in terms of how we get drawn off of what is important for us. We get distracted by getting activated by something that the other parent's doing that isn't important, and things along that line. So sit back, grab your coffee, pay attention to the road, and let's get with it. Good morning, Tony.
Good morning, Brooke. How are you?
Having my coffee. I'm not driving.
This is important. That's good. This is an important one for me because, again, we kind of use me as your favorite lab rat and my journey of all the things and times that I was just activated and didn't necessarily know the true reason why. And so let's get into that, because this is I think this one podcast alone could really be a game changer for many people out there.
Yeah, no, I think so. And you and I had a little conversation before we got started here, and we got to really dig into this a little bit. One of the things that I think is important for us to bring into this conversation as we start to roll in is I think that there's just a few things that are important. One of them is you're important. You are absolutely important. Your children are absolutely important. How you move through this world and how you are with ease within your own system is absolutely important, because it helps your child have a template that they can match to. And the things, again, that are important that we have to engage in, if we can look at them, prioritize them, even if they do have importance, and put them in a compartment so we can come back to it and let the rest of our life move forward, is what we really want to start to lean into in this.
Certainly when you start out, depending on where you are and the length of your divorce and how high conflict you are, everything seems important. I don't think that people starting out in the high conflict arena and starting to engage in some of this can look and say, oh, I can compartmentalize these things. It's very hard to do that because everything is screaming at you. There's timelines, there's children, there's the other side, there's court, there's paperwork. Everything is important. But in reality, when you start piecing these things together and settling your nervous system down a bit, you start seeing what truly is important. And that's where we're kind of coming from. What is true to your heart? What is true to this place on earth that Brooke is mentioning here? What is truly important? And the further you lean into this, you really see shining stars come to the surface of, wow, that's truly that wasn't important. I don't even know if I needed to give that attention. Versus my kid, I just need to sit and be. What are you solving? Nothing. I'm here. That's important.
A lot of what we're trying to do is optimize the outcomes for our children. And by our perception of how we want to optimize that outcome, in many cases, we're actually doing the opposite. We're creating a situation that is going to deter them from the optimization that we're aiming at. And we have some idea that doing things a certain way, taking certain action, giving our children certain information is absolutely what needs to happen. And that may absolutely, truly be correct. but we've got somebody else in the mix that has a different agenda. And they may actually think what they're doing is optimal for the child, and you guys are just on different sides of that tennis court. And because of that, there's this back and forth that is creating a situation where the child is in the middle of this tension field. And what we're trying to do in this is say consistently, and you guys have heard this over and over and over again, so you're going to hear it again today, that there really is nothing there that we can control. And the more that we try to control that piece, the more pushback that we get from them on that, and the more tension that's put on the child. So there are truly things that need to be addressed, but they're minimal. We talk about dietary stuff and extracurricular stuff and school stuff that really have little significance to the optimization of the child's outcomes as it pertains to the conflict being a bigger problem. And when we can start to look at what that means and we can start to disengage from that, then we can start to move forward. We can start to get our life in a manner that things are calm. The child does get the information that we want to get to them. The other person can pop back as much as they want to do, but we are pushing that ball down the field in a pretty steady pace.
I mean, think about it this way, because you talk about nutrition and extracurricular and all the various things, which on their own are important. I'm not going to discount those, but if you're modeling those things in life, then they're a non-issue. They have very little gravity to them. You're not putting a lot of energy. If you're eating well, you're going for walks after work, you're reading a good book, and the child is seeing these things. These are just part of your life. There's no gravity. There's nothing swirling around them. They're just part of life. So they're not that they are important or unimportant. But on the other side, if you're drinking and you're out and you're hungover when your kid comes over and you're not reading and you're gaining weight and all the various things that come along that line, you're modeling improperly. So then they do kind of have gravity. But I'm using the term gravity because you brought up the other side of the coin, the other party. Anything they throw at you and you react to automatically by its very nature has gravity now. It has a force to it. But if you don't react to it, you don't play in that field, it has no gravity. It has no force to it. It's just nothing. So by that very nature, that very inaction, it's unimportant. It's water off a duck's back. It goes away. So that frees up and settles everything in your system to be able to handle the things that are important. And that prioritization that you talk about, Brooke, becomes easier. It's hard. I remember everything was a priority. Every accusation, every piece of paper from court, every date, every time, it was all important. And how are you supposed to function? How are you supposed to do anything in life when everything's important?
You don't. You get caught in the vortex and you're in constant spin. We were talking before we started this podcast, and Tony, you were talking about how you've started to come to this notion that when somebody does something that triggers you, whether it's your partner, your child, your ex, whoever that person is that triggers you, that trigger isn't about them and it's not their problem. We've talked about this a little bit before, but it's your problem because it's your nervous system that's triggered. And you are trying to do something if, like most people, you start to get up in your partner's grill because they didn't put something away, or they didn't do something just right, or they didn't say something just right. and you took it as something that was not meant to be. And you start to spin within that. That's your nervous system. And it's your problem because you don't have the capacity or the consciousness in that moment to go down that ladder and de-escalate it internally and go, oh, that's not a big deal. Oh, I can put that away and that takes care of my nervous system.
Yeah, it
Oh,
was.
if I go over there and I give them a hard time about that, that makes them feel shame, guilt, anger, and that escalates. And that piece that didn't get put away isn't worth my relationship in this. That piece being out is my problem, and it's no big deal for me to put it away. It takes me a minute, but it takes me 20 to have an argument. And I
Yeah, even
walk away
longer if
from
you're
the
looking for
argument,
down right.
yeah, and I walk away from the argument still pissed, whereas I put it away, I see my partner, I go, wow, everything's cool, and I'm done. I've de-escalated my internal process. And I think, you really brought this in well when we were talking before we started the podcast today, is that truly is my responsibility, is to de-escalate internally. I don't have to escalate anything anywhere ever. I have to set boundaries. I can say, this is a line and I really need that to be held. And if you can't, I am going to withdraw or I'm going to do whatever I'm going to do. But there's this boundary that, this is a line that I don't want to have crossed. And that I can hold that boundary. But holding the boundary isn't an escalation, it is just that. And what happens in this arena is we feel that we have to go in and rescue a child to get them back over on this side where it's safe. Where what we really need to do is have the child here when they're here and have it be safe and give them the tools to be safe over there, whatever that means to you. And that doesn't happen unless you are settled, unless you've been able to prioritize, to really be cognizant of what's happening in your nervous system, and then be able to make a choice from there. What I've been noticing more and more, and I'm going to bring in more and more into these podcasts and my teaching, into the trainings that Tony and I are doing, is this notion that there's nothing that happens within our system, within our body, that isn't nervous system related. Our nervous system turns on switches and turns off switches all over the place. It elevates heart rate, it downregulates heart rate, it turns on sweat, it turns on so many activated nerve cells in our body that we can't stay within our body hardly. And the more we become aware of what that's happening to us in the moment, I mean, I'm sitting here and I'm going, yeah, my hands got a little tingle, my heart rate's a little bit up, and I'm simultaneously having a conversation with you about all of this stuff. And it's playing in the background. So I know exactly where I'm at in space and time. And I know exactly what it is that's taking place internally. And I know that I have choices from here. And then I can start to manually, because I have the skills sometimes, many times, to just turn it back and go, there's nothing important here. There's no reason for me to be upset or aggravated or sped up. I can go, oh, I can just sit back and take my nervous system down a couple of notches, take my heart rate down, and now I'm comfortable. And that frees me and frees you up to do so many other things that need to be done from a cognitive standpoint, a choice made standpoint that doesn't escalate.
Think how well that does if your child is in the room watching that happen, and they're old enough or aware, even if they're young, they're still aware of the fact that you're not tingling and bristling with activation, and that you're calm about the world around you. And then that child sees that, a lion just walked in the room and dad's just cool as a cucumber.
Here, kitty, kitty.
I like that. That is a great place to be, because going back to that, I wrote this down because I wanted to kind of sort of say it right, but I'll probably say it wrong, which is, when you have a problem in life or someone's activating you, and hopefully everybody out there understands activated, elevated heart rate, and the nervous system, and all that, you get you're a little on edge. But when something happens, and I'll kind of just make up a story. So I come in, the kitchen's a mess, and it activates me. I want to fight about it. And yet I'm pointing out, I'm looking out at the problems. And it wasn't until recently I started saying, let's look in the mirror. Why is this a problem to me? And I started walking down the path of why this was a problem. And you and I went over this. It was a problem because I feel disrespected. Internally, I felt disrespected. I looked in my past. I looked at my father leaving my life when I was young. I felt disrespected then. It pinged me on these different levels. So the end result was, this isn't about the kitchen being dirty. This is an internal conversation that I'm having with myself. And once I settled that part of it, I didn't give a crap about the kitchen. Kitchen wasn't important. It was the fact that now I could point inward to find solutions that downregulated my system. And this could apply to everything that you're dealing with when you're being accused of by the ex of whatever it may be. And you're like, why is that pinging me? Why is that? And you look internally and you start walking down that path. And you go, oh, this, that, and the other. You find the reasons why, if you can do that. And as you do that, then you come back to what the actual accusation was. You're like, oh, that's not important. And you get back to business. If you can model that in front of a child and they actually understood exactly what was happening, their world would be a different place. Their world would be settled and calm and like, wow, dad is, you say this all the time, Brooke, you got this. Your child will look at you and go, my dad, my mom, whoever it may be, you walk through that exercise, like, they got this. They are settled on earth. I feel safe. I love it here. And that's a wonderful thing to model for a kid. And that's what I mean by just that pure stance alone. Stop listening right now. Just turn off the computer, because that is just a huge thing right there. You own it now.
And it puts us, I think, in another way to look at cooperative relationship, which is what we want to be teaching our children along the way. And so we see that they're struggling with some task. And rather than let them struggle with it, which they maybe need to a little bit, we can step in and not fix it for them, but engage with them and walk through it with them and help them with whatever the task is. Our partner is in the kitchen and we're sitting on the couch, and we get up and we go in and help them in the kitchen rather than just sit on the couch. And what we're modeling for our partner, what we're modeling for our children is we're here to be engaged in the relationship rather than just go do it, or you're struggling and, I'm here, I care, let's do this together. So we're in relationship and cooperation. And when we do that, everybody's nervous system settles. One of the things about human beings is when we're in service of other, it feels good to us. It serves everybody. And when we're not, it serves nobody. So we're starting to model disengagement on one side of this piece as it relates to our activation, our nervous system getting pissed off, our resentment coming up. Like you were saying, Tony, we're starting to pay attention to where that comes from. This isn't a present moment problem. This is an old problem that we're being pinged about. A lot of the stuff for the people that are listening to this, They are reacting to how this person was before, and this person isn't in the room, they're over there, and now we do have some dominion over what happens here. And then when we've got something that we need to look at, something that we do need to prioritize and do, then we can do it in a fashion that is conducive to staying out of the fight, solving the problem here and not pushing the problem over there. It's all the same mix, but we're showing health to our children in doing it that way. Whereas if we engage and we point to the other person as being the problem, or they're just doing this over again, or they're inserting themselves into my world, they're sending emails to me that are accusatory of X, Y, and Z, and I'm headed down that road and my activation is up, this child is looking at you and going, "What's up? I'm over here. I need your presence. And you are off in outer space somewhere."
You're
So
modeling not safe. Finger quotes. You're modeling not safe. And a kid will look at that and say, Dad's climbing a ladder here. Or mom is getting a little sideways here. I don't know if I feel safe, and I need, the attention, or I need I need to feel that safety. And so much of that was something I think I missed in the first couple of years, is just that, God, my daughter didn't want anything except me just in the room. And when I mean in the room, I don't just physically mean me in the room. I mean mentally and emotionally in the room. And when my mind was on pending court date, a myriad of accusations and other things going on, I wasn't emotionally in the room. I was modeling something that my daughter probably looked at and goes, wow, who's the scared cat sitting in the corner? That was me.
I remember those years with you, Tony, and I remember distinctly when things started to change with you and your daughter, and where you started to plan stuff with her, and you started to make her a priority, and you started to hold that space between your daughter and your relationship to know, I'm here with my daughter, and when I'm not with my daughter, I'm in relationship. And where, if I can talk about this a little bit, where
Absolutely.
When you came back into cohabitating, you lost some of that. It got murky. And as it got murky, your daughter started to move away a little bit. And when you brought that back in, and she was that piece, and this isn't about, they're everything all the time, but that she could feel your presence and your attention, and you not getting drawn away into other drama, boom, she was right back there. And this was that process of you, kind of being in what's important here.
Absolutely.
And not getting drawn into whatever distraction was there, whether it was your current relationship, whether it was your ex-wife, whether it was stuff at work. No, this is what's important. And that wasn't just pouring yourself into play with your daughter. That was pouring yourself into school with your daughter, into extracurriculars with your daughter, going surfing with your daughter, and also engaging with her in some of the things that she needed to learn along the way. And every time I've watched any glitch in your relationship with your daughter, that correction that you make consistently changes the tone.
Yeah. It's a modeling thing. You do.
It so is.
Yeah. It's always been an important one for me. And we can all say our kids are important. Hopefully everybody who's listening can firmly say that. We've run across parents who question that, but the ones I think that are listening, your kids are important, but how are they important, and how can you show them you're important? And it is hard when you say, hey, the court date's important. I need to do these things for the court. Hey, go do your homework. Get away from me. I need to do this so that I can have more time. There's justification that can be done. Mm-hmm. But if you're in a 50-50, 60-40, whatever the relationship, this is back to the basics. Save that stuff for when you're on your own. And then when your child is in your house, show them they're important by modeling all the right things. Going for that walk with them, being present with them. And then when they're not in the home, okay, now let's sit down and buckle down and get that court work done.
Going on walks with them, doing the playtime with them, but also doing laundry with them, cooking with them, cleaning with them, doing homework with them, being calm and teaching calm problem solving, where it isn't in a tension field of anxiety creating. Problems are there to be solved. They're there to be identified and solved, or related to and worked through. And it doesn't get the job done if anybody in that process is activated in anxiety. So when we're creating a situation with our children, whatever it is, and we're calm and we've got a problem to solve, and we're just calm and we're walking through the steps, they're learning how to be calm and walking through the steps rather than going, oh my God, I've got a test tomorrow and I'm not ready and I'm going to fail. And, they get out into that
Storytelling.
crazy making place where you're sitting down going, oh, you got a test tomorrow. Let's break out the book and let's see what's going on. I see you're really anxious about that. Well, all we can do is prepare. And if we prepare, you'll do well. And if you don't, it's not the end of the world. Nobody dies.
Yeah.
And we go through the next step and they learn that, oh, shit.
I mean, think about the people out there, and I could say this for myself pretty well, of how many great decisions I've made when I was under high stress, anxiety ridden, and I was never making the right choice.
Not a single one.
Not one. I was swinging and missing every single time. But now that I'm seeing these things, and instead of pointing outward, they are the problem, that's the issue, they stink, that, and I'm looking in and internally now saying, why do they stink, and why does that make me feel nervous or odd or anxious? Why am I activated by that? And if I turn that conversation internally, I'm in control of my nervous system. It just settles my nerves on all fronts. And then I'm making the appropriate decisions. It's clear. It clears that muddy water where then I can truly see, as opposed to these 10 problems in front, I literally see these other 8 of them fade away and go, huh, these other 2 are important. What was that other stuff? I don't even remember. But these are important. Let's focus on this stuff. And you come at it not only from a way of not everything's important, you also are able to strategically think it through in a cleaner, more precise way that's thought driven as opposed to reaction driven, which, as I just stated, on a high reaction note of anxiety is never the right way to go about things.
Yeah, if I'm angry, if I'm in a state of activation, I know I'm going to make the wrong decision. I know it because I've got a history of it. And that's not the place that we want to be.
It's often what I do this all the time. My analogy is always a ladder. And I was doing this at work again for somebody else. And it was just, the top of the ladder is you are exploding in anxiety and nervous system activation, and bottom of the ladder is life. But really being able to be self-aware of that. I put my foot on rung number 1. Okay, it's starting to bug me, but I'm climbing a ladder to 3 to 4. And so I was explaining this to somebody at work, of really trying to be self-aware that when you get to about 2 or 3 or 4, that's really when you need to just lean right in, be like, whoa, you'll get to 10, but you're being self-aware at rung number 2 or 3 and saying, okay, settle nervous system. Is this important? Is this not? It's not. And it just down regulates from there. And the person understood it. And now I think uses it in daily practice, which is important.
When we're in these pieces with the other parent, it's clear that what they're doing to try to activate us is coming from an activation in their own system. And when we don't engage in that, when we don't meet them in that, we're typically doing something that they're not used to. And it activates them even more. And they start to press. And if we allow that to happen, if we just, again, go, what they're doing isn't a priority. And I don't have to get into that. I don't have to respond to that. I don't have to engage in that. Then what comes from that starts to show more and more of their inability to be child-centric. And this isn't a strategy about going to court or getting a parenting coordinator to see what's going on, but it is a natural outcome of it. Talking to a client the other day, and the child, and there's so many people out here that can relate to this. The child has their own stuff. They have their own toys, they have their own clothes, they have their own things. And the mom in this case was going, where do you want it? Take it wherever you want. And the dad in this case is going to the child, you have to bring that stuff over here. And the child's going to mom, I don't want to take it over there. And mom's reaction to that was simply, and I loved it, that's your stuff. You do what you want to do. And she didn't engage with dad saying, no, the child wants it here, and then getting this back and forth, no, you have to pack it, because that's what he was saying. You have to pack it, you have to bring it, you have to bring it over here. And she just kind of sat back and said, this is going to work its way out. And dad keeps taking it up. And the interesting part of this story is this is going to end up in front of a parenting coordinator who's going to listen to dad and go, wait a minute, this is what the kid wants. And it's not mom's job to take stuff that is yours, that goes over there, to you, pick it up and do it. So this controlling stuff that starts to show up, and the victim stuff that starts to show up from these high conflict personalities, is to their own detriment. And it's only to your detriment if you get caught up in their tornado. And the likelihood that you've got a history there with them and with your family of origin is that piece that you were talking about, Tony, of where you are getting activated. So to be able to go down that ladder and go, this isn't my problem, and to sit in this isn't my problem, allows you to break free and to move forward, because this stuff is an anchor in your life. It's keeping you from the things that you need in your world. If your child, you guys have heard me say this 1,000 times, if there's something in your child's world that they need, don't negotiate it with the other parent, because it's going to take more time than it's worth. Just do it. And if they don't like that you did it, tough. That's their problem, not yours. You're taking care of your child. And when anybody looks at that, they're going to see that you were taking care of your child. Unless you're doing something, egregious and stupid.
Or to aggravate the other side, you're doing, you have to find your motive. But then that's, again, looking internally, right, which is a lot of what this conversation is about.
Before you make a move.
Yeah. You look inside and what are your motives behind it? The thing that shifted for me so much was that if I'm fielding balls from the other side, they're throwing accusations, and all I'm doing is being defensive and doing the standard things that everybody does out there, reacting, versus that one time now that this lighthouse that's in my mind right now of, why am I reacting? Why is it reactive to me? I'm now taking control of it. Now it's important to me to be self-aware of why it is, And it takes all the power out from, it takes all the wind out of their sails, because now I understand why it is that it's bothering me. Why is my system activated? And if you understand each time that that person's coming at you and why you're getting activated, you carry that forward forever now. Now you own all that. And it's not only just with the ex, it's with work. It's with that person who was driving too slow in the parking lot at the grocery store. And now you're internalized and you're thinking, why? Oh, it's because of this in me. It goes away. It fades away. It's such a calm, peaceful place to be now.
You know, it's the place that I talk about in class about the great kahunas when, you know, they're doing their healing work with the people that come to them. They go internal and they look at what's inside of them that is causing that person distress. Because again, so much of this is just a reflection, right? And they make that internal correction and suddenly that person isn't in distress. Because you're not in distress, you're not having that reflection there. When you put that piece away, you're not in distress anymore, and neither is the other person. Their nervous system begins to settle, and this is the relational piece. It's fascinating. It's simple, but it ain't easy. Because we are, by our very biology, by our very nature, activated systems in one way or another. And this is about learning how to be here and to navigate that in a way that doesn't cause a bunch of chaos everywhere in our world, and that of our kids, that of our partners, that of our ex-partners. So
you think about I mean, it's easy for me because I'm a graphic designer by trade, so I'm visual based. I have one heart, I have two lungs, two eyes, one nose, two ears, one head, but I have billions of nerve cells. Maybe wrong, maybe it's millions, but who cares? Look at the proportion of nerves. And okay, billions. So you see billions of nerve cells. No wonder we're nerve based. And your very notion of what we started this podcast out of, nervous system activation. Everything is. Well, no crud. Look at the numbers. Numbers don't lie. When you're a bundle of nerves, and we're not a bundle of eyeballs and a bundle of hearts, we're a bundle of nerves.
But so the eyeballs, the nose, the ears, all of this triggers all of those billions of nerve cells. And if we don't have some relationship with that, that's running the show.
Yeah.
So, you know, again, these practices that we talk about in terms of meditating, mindful practice, blah, 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 are important. They just are. And it starts with, oh man, my heart's racing here, and I want to do something. Rule number 4, don't just do something, sit there.
Sit there.
Oh, this stuff. It's here for a reason. We use these terms for a reason because they help. Just that rule. Oh, it helps. Boom. Now I'm here. So,
yeah.
Anything you want to add in here, Tony, as we head toward the finish line?
Only that I think the people listening need to understand that you can come from a spiritual point of view. I'm not particularly spiritual in any great sense. And when we say look inward, we're not looking, for me personally, I'm not looking for an inner deity, an inner spirit, a Catholic, Jewish, Buddha. I'm not looking for that. I'm looking internally, because most of the time I'm finding something internally that's being activated from my past in particular that is valid, that's why I reacted that way. And once I understand that, then I don't react. It becomes less important. Then the other side stops throwing me balls because I'm not fielding them anymore. Why? Because I understand internally what that is. So there are other people out there who do have spiritual practices, leaning on that as well, because as Brooke pointed out, a lot of this is very deeply spiritual in many ways. So my point being is this can work for any spectrum of where you stand on your spiritual guide. But for me, it's just a matter of understanding myself internally, taking control of it internally, understanding it internally, and then how that reflects to my daughter and her seeing the calmness and, wow, you just handled that really well. I need to critically think about how I'm reacting to things. And she's 14 and she's dealing with a lot of stuff right now on her plate with the new high school kids, drama, all the things that hit. But I'm teaching her what is actually important. Mm-hmm. And right. That, I think, great model.
And I like that you brought in the, the spirituality piece and all of that, because I don't care how you shake this or bake it. I don't care what you call it or how you go about it. It simply boils down to being conscious. It boils down to being here in this mechanism and being conscious of what's going on in the mechanism. And, practices like meditation, you can frame that as being spiritual, but I prefer to frame that as being conscious, because that's all I'm doing is I'm just working on being here. I'm just working on being in my body, watching the mechanism function, watching where the mechanism takes me off track into some place that is not here. I'm just coming back to the mechanism. And if that's spirituality, okay. But I think it's just consciousness. I think it's just how we learn and how we teach our children to be present for all the things that happen in this world. You talked about something before this that I wanted you to bring in, and I thought you were headed in that direction, but it was this, what was the word that you used that you hyphenated?
Torment. Darn it. Torment. Right. Mentor.
So this person is a tormentor. This stuff that we're feeling tormented in, that this person or this incident is bringing to us, is an opportunity for us to learn from. And rather than frame that as this is aggravating, framing that as I have something to learn here. And then that takes and washes away the aggravation. It doesn't wash away the activation necessarily, but it reframes it in a way that it's easier to manage. Yeah, this person's going slow in front of me. It's really angering me. What an idiot. Come on, use the right pedal. And then it's like, what's that? I'm going to get someplace 3 minutes later. What's that? I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be right now. If I got out in front of that car, I might get into an intersection, I might get hit. Let's just follow what's in front of me. Everything comes down. And that's a moment of that person in the car in front of me mentoring me to be present to what's really in front of me. And it ain't them. It's me.
That's my big takeaway. A lot of almost everything now. It's not them. It's not that. It's not them. It's not those people. It's not that thing. Once I look in the mirror and I go, that's what it did for me. This is where it came from. This is why I'm active. And I could piece those things together. It's not just those one times. Now I'm holding on to that baton. I'm carrying that forward with everything that comes at my way. I can always relate it internally now and internally say, why is it doing that to me? How do I deal with it? How do I settle my nervous system? Done. And it becomes a practice, and you just start moving forward and everything calms down, and you become a model for your child and your children, and a model for the other party too. Every time they try to activate you and you're like, nope, not important, not a thing, got some gardening to do, they just sit there and scratch their head. Like, wait a minute, who's that? I used to be able to get them to climb the ladder with one sentence, and now they're not there. Wait a minute. They go find a new toy to play with.
All right, everybody. This has been episode 154. What is important? Prioritizing, disengaging, and moving forward. Again, Tony, thanks for showing up for the conversation. It's always a pleasure. You always bring so much to the conversation. And we'll be here next week again. Take care.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brooke.
Brooke, people don't have to wait until Friday mornings to get more content. If this is something that's helpful for them, right? This isn't the first time you've broadcast anything or recorded anything or put anything out there in the world. What are the other ways people can get the help more aggressively or speed up their recovery process? What materials are available for people right now?
Well, I've written a book called The Black Hole of High Conflict, and it's available on Amazon and Kindle. And everything that we're talking about is really compressed and put into there. So this is a really good starter place to get in and get your mind working and to see what these concepts are about and how to start to apply them. The other place that I think that is valuable is to go to our website and look at some of the blog articles that I've written. Those are available there as well. They go into some of these other arenas, and that's at www.highconflict.net. So the book, the website are also really good places to get the material. And also we have classes. We have high conflict diversion program classes that you can get into and get some one-on-one help with this as well.
And you know me, I'm aggressive. Whatever I want to become good at or learn, I find someone who's good at it and pay them and hire them and shorten my learning curve. What if somebody just wants your help? Somebody says, Brooke has this information. He's good at something I'm not good at yet, and I want to work with him. Do you have any type of coaching or consultations or anything like that?
Absolutely. I do one-on-one coaching for custody cases. I help people get ready for family court services. If you've got that in your community, I work with attorneys and clients to help them with managing and strategically setting them up to have more successful cases as well.
And how do they reach out? You want them to just go to the website or email or phone, or what's the best way for them to reach out, raise their hand, and say, I need some help?
They can email me. My direct email is Brook at highconflict.net. That's BROOK at highconflict, conflict.net.
Perfect. That's everything everybody would need to get some help, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Brooke.